few days ago, we got the first trailer for Mission Impossible 8: The Final Reckoning. This comes after some wide reporting that the budget of that movie is quickly approaching $400 million. Now, I don't know if I believe that, but it is worth mentioning that this movie has had some high-profile setbacks, with the writer and actor strikes, ongoing COVID protocols, and apparently an expensive malfunction of a submarine set piece that halted filming for a considerable amount of time. Remember, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning cost Paramount $291 million due mostly to the pandemic, and that movie only made $570 million at the box office. And while I personally enjoyed that movie, there was a considerable lack of interest in it, especially with the Barbenheimer movement exploding onto the scene just 1 week after Dead Reckoning hit theaters.
For every life you tried to save, you gambled millions more.
With all that being said, I wanted to get back to this trailer, and I know that Paramount is attempting to offset the massive cost by promoting this film as the final entry of the series, thus hopefully garnering enough interest from the general public to give it some kind of cushion for the film to make its money back in the back end. But I think that honestly requires a little bit of an analysis. For those of you who don't know, when it comes to Hollywood films, whether or not a film is successful or profitable is a little bit wonky. Something that they will never really tell us is whether or not a movie makes money or not. They will say generally this movie is going to lose a bunch of money, or this movie made this much money if the amounts are considerable, but anything in between, it's really hard to say. That being said, most movies make their money back sometime in the life of the film. Movies don't just come out in the theater and just disappear into the ether. There's so many avenues for a movie like this to make money that trying to break it down is essentially impossible. I mean, obviously you have to look at the production budget, which if this movie is nearing $400 million, then yeah, $400 million. Obviously they're going to use about $150 million to market and distribute the movie when it comes out. So generally speaking, because of how theaters take their cut and how worldwide operators take their cut, depending on China or any other international market, there's a lot to consider there. But generally speaking, this movie is going to have to make about what Fallout did, about $800 million in order to break even at the box office. But you also have to consider the fact that this is the 8th film in a long-running franchise. You're not just talking about the life of this movie or the amount of money this movie brings in. You're talking about pretty much the other 7 Mission Impossible movies and how much interest that garners into those movies when this movie actually comes out. And all the money they make is, beneficial for this movie coming out. And likewise, then you have streaming, you have international rights because they have to sell it to other distributors to get it around world. And then you also have to think about the VOD cost and how much people pay for that. There's just too many avenues to really call off a movie and say that it wasn't successful at the theatrical level, because by and large, most theatrical distributions of movies are a bit of a loss leader to the longer life of the movie. If you know anything about that, I'm sure you kind of understand that the theatrical box office didn't used to be as important as it is now, but even with all the differences that streaming has made and people not buying home entertainment, DVDs, Blu-rays, 4Ks, or anything like that is now, you still don't have to make your profit in the box office in order for a movie to actually make a profit in the long run. Again, movies have long half-lives, so take all that with a grain of salt before we jump right into this trailer.
Everything you are, everything you've done has come to this.
If this is the end of my road, I accept it.
So watching that specific trailer, I just have to say that it feels kind of like an apology letter from Tom Cruise. Look, we all know the industry has shifted significantly in the last 5 years or so. Ever since COVID, studios have been chasing the Netflix model. They've relied more and more on franchise fare, and they've started to shift to AI to cut cost in production pretty much in every avenue they can. But throughout it all, Tom Cruise has actively pushed back on all of these decisions. He actively promoted the theatrical experience during COVID. He helped promote new filming standards under the pandemic. He supported the below-line crew in the hiatus for Dead Reckoning and fought for Top Gun Maverick to be released in theaters instead of on Paramount+. And he's been actively propping up the next generation of actors this entire time. And look, despite all conventional wisdom, I think he's generally correct on all of this. You can look at the box office take for Fallout, which was $791 million in 2018. Top Gun Maverick made $1.495 billion in 2020. And pretty much everything that he's done has made some sort of a profit since then. But I do have to wonder if Cruise might be starting to feel the effects of the modern shift of the entertainment world. As I said, Dead Reckoning only made $570 million worldwide, despite a production cost of $291 million. And that isn't even counting marketing and distribution. Like I said, it's probably going to make its budget back and everything, make a profit eventually if it hasn't already, but they're never going to tell us that. Now, however, Paramount seems to be in the whole $400 million for Mission Impossible 8, and the higher-ups just certainly can't be happy about that. The news for the production budget of this upcoming movie just makes me wonder about Cruise's deal that he made with Warner Brothers just a couple of months ago, and whether or not this budget had something to do with that, whether or not Paramount wants anything to do with him and his demands going forward, especially since all the financial trouble that they've been having as of late that's been widely reported.
I need you to trust me. One last time.
The world is changing here, guys. The idea that you can just make a franchise film, it can cost as much as it's going to cost and you're going to get your money back is no longer as much of a guarantee as it was even just 5 years ago. And it seems kind of fitting that the one thing that might kill the Mission Impossible franchise for good is a story about human beings fighting AI and how AI is just simply going to take over and win no matter what. I hope that's not the case. I hope that the movie is good and I hope it makes its budget back, but man, it just feels a little bit bad, especially when you're talking about someone like Tom Cruise, who has done, by and large, some of the most impactful things for the film industry since the start of the pandemic. And even he probably can't sell something like the final entry of a Mission Impossible sequel, something that has been going on for 20 plus years now, to the tune of the amount that it's going to cost to make this movie, because all of the right decisions were made. Practical effects, taking care of everyone below the line, and really taking COVID and everything seriously. I think that's a little sad. And I hope I'm wrong, but we're just going to have to wait and see.